Testing. Okay, yes, we're live. We good, Munch? Awesome.
Test.
Welcome, 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 welcome to Communal Conversation
Hello.
during Little at the Little Haiti Cultural Complex. Thank you for joining us. For those who are streaming, thank you for streaming. I am excited about this conversation. My name is Dasha St. Remy. I am the new manager here at the Little Haiti Cultural Complex.
Aïe, bobo.
And throughout the month of May, I wanted to really spearhead conversations throughout the month. Oh, he has to lower that, that echo, that feedback. I wanted to have conversation with particular leaders throughout our city doing some amazing work, curators, healers, practitioners. This particular segment is on being called, created, and chosen. And so the conversation, at Communal Conversation, it's almost like they're not here, it's just us. They will have an opportunity to engage in the conversation at some point. But it's basically us in the living room having a conversation about who we be in this world, how we exist. And I'm just a moderator, and please feel free, just to talk amongst us as friends. I'm going to give our guests the opportunity to introduce themselves. We're going to start from the far end and make our way over here, and we're going to let the conversation begin.
Oh, man. Honor. So my name is Reverend Nyya Toussaint. I am a Haitian American who grew up in New Jersey. I currently serve at First Church Miami downtown. I am also a PhD student at FIU in history, where I study. My scholarship has focused on, for some time, the intersections of faith and social movement for Black folks. I particularly tend to look at Pentecostalism and voodoo. I am happy to be, I gotta drop our people, Kosomba. Kosomba, I'm a junior board member of Kosomba, the association, the Scholarly Association for Voodoo Studies. And so, yes, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Naya.
Hello, I'm Mumbo Dr. Charlene Desir. I'm a professor in a university down here. I'm also a healer. I'm a school psychologist, and I'm a daughter of the ancestors. I'm a child of Wakaima. And I am delighted to be here, honored to be invited by our new director and being with these esteemed, gifted, chosen colleagues. Most of my work is around the liberation of children, decolonizing their imagination. So I have worked with Dr. Hall, who's here in the audience, for almost a decade plus, creating programs grounded in psychosocial Haitian indigenous practices in Florida and in Haiti. So I am definitely dedicated to our continued liberation.
L'honneur. Non pas c'est Ireola Olaifa, moi c'est petite merci à Dieu juste avec Jean-Aubert Phileus. I am a daughter of the way. I am a restitutive steward. I am an educator, and I am a sacred arts curator / producer. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you, Toussaint, for the invitation, and thank you to all those that are here that I've had the pleasure of working with before, and new friends, new family members that we get to make tonight. My work is centered around really stewarding our channels, our sacred storytellers, our high context storytellers, our gewel is what I call them. I think that artists play such a critical role in our communities, yet they've been bastardized, exploited, and yet they don't reap the benefits of their own healing power. And so part of my work is to really bring that stewardship to our channels, to our artists, and the children as well, because for me, I think that we can learn from other people who understand that institution building is about always starting with the young. And so bringing the resources and the education and information to our youth has always been a passion and a work of mine. And so I'm very honored here to be in community and to have these conversations.
Thank you. Let's get into it. Let's start with healing. Let's start with healing. So the things that we have, all four of us have in common is that we have been called to a particular path, whether we want to be on this path or not. And so as I know we understand our own path, what is that process? What was that process like for you all? And how is it rooted in your own healing journey? I know. Listen, the people want to know. Because it's important. It's important. We got to get into it. We're going to take it to our elder and say, yeah. Let's let the elder speak.
But we need to know.
Lead the way.
Well, you know, we are all experiencing massive trauma, generational trauma, a misalignment with our true nature. And, you know, I was a school psychologist very young, and I was in the schools, and, you know, I was testing young people, and some of them had psychological issues. They had learning issues, but then there was this third factor that I couldn't put my hand on exactly what was happening to them. And, you know, I decided that, you know, I need to understand this and have a passport that no one will question me. I applied to Harvard and got accepted to a doctoral program. And I spent the next 7 years studying Haitian children. And I did a longitudinal study for my dissertation, looking at their racial, social, and psychological adjustment. And one of the things that I found is that, you know, we are disconnected with our natural ways of being. And eventually I found Black psychology, and I was mentored by one of the founders, Dr. Baba Wade Nobles. And for 2 years I apprenticed under him to create Vodou psychology. And we are disconnected with ourselves through our experiences. We are disconnected to the land. We're disconnected primarily to our epistemology, how we understand the world. And if you are of African descent, living in the Americas, you were shifted. You were shifted by your whole consciousness of understanding from generations, and it's passed down that you're dislocated with the very center in which you were created by the divine God. So how do you proceed when the very fabric of who, what, and why you are has positioned you as less than? So you must decolonize your imagination back to its original source. And that is founded in your community. That is founded in seeing yourself, Ubuntu, and seeing yourself in someone else. I exist because you exist. So we are challenged to segregate ourselves from ourselves. And that's absolutely the highest form of, for me, mental illness is lying to yourself and then believing it. You know, so the programs that I create is to recenter young people from that core. That you are God's highest love story. And if you position yourself in that, then you begin to, in a process of understanding not who you are, but what you are and why you are. And, you know, in my tradition, you know, I wasn't raised in a Vodou community, but I came to it when I was a student at Harvard, where when I was looking at books, they were all on Vodou. And I'm like, when I typed in Haiti, 400 references, I'm like, they're studying us, but we're not studying ourselves. And it is in that journey, reading all those texts, I found the psychology of Black consciousness in America. North, South, Caribbean America. And through that, I began to develop programs to deconstruct the psychosis that they place on us every day.
So it sounds like a dis-ease, right? like disease, dis-ease, being able to exist in this iteration, given that we were pulled out of our natural way of being, existing. So again, the question becomes, how has that healing journey been for you all in coming out of that, or continue to come into that revelation of this dis-ease that we are experiencing?
So for me, I was met with rage at the tender age of 12. And it was such a deep rage that my mother took me to church and they thought I had a demon and that I needed an exorcism. Because I was fighting and beating up every symbol of oppression that I could see. Because my educators and the adults around me didn't protect me. I went to a middle school that was filled with vultures. They hated who we were. They hated our skin tone. And our teachers and the administration never failed to remind us of that hatred that they had. And so that hatred transformed into rage within me. Because I didn't understand it. I didn't understand how you can hate children. I didn't understand how you could hate the people that you were here to inform and to make better and to, be a part of their growth. I didn't understand it. And at some point, I didn't care to understand it. I just knew that they had to be beaten up. And so that's what I did. My family didn't know how to help me because, again, they didn't understand that what was really happening was that my danto was being activated.
Explain.
She was like, oh no. So I say danto, qui se mettait pam, because she represents justice, communal justice, protector of children, protector of women, protector of all of those who are oppressed in our community. And within me, that's what I was the bully for bullies. That's what I was called. That's what the bully for bullies, right? So like I said, the school, a lot of immigrants, Guatemala, Haiti, all over the Caribbean, South America, you name it, even parts of Europe. But I would notice that the European immigrants were not on the receiving end of what was happening to the rest of us. So that rage wasn't fully, I didn't even fully understand it because, they would say, I'm like, you're like your dad. You're just like your dad. And it's true. My dad was very short-tempered and, he would like cuss out the nurses that were taking care of him, like right up until he passed on. But he would do it in a playful way, and he would be the person that would like square like a sailor, but at the same time show you so much love. And so they always just relegated all that to, oh, you're just like your father. You're developing to be like your father, but it was something deeper. I knew I wasn't like my father because I was more gentle and I wasn't as short-tempered, but things that didn't seem just to me enraged me in a way that I did not know how to control or manage. And again, what we do is when children, Dr. Desir knows this best, when children start to show these signs of a mettet that is taking its place, is we call it all these other things, anger management, mental health, and all these other diseases, schizophrenia. We have a lot of these different things at the DSMV places, right? But because we don't have that spiritual guide that scholars are leaning by, we can't identify these things. Now we can because we have people who are working and to archive this information. So the healing journey started there where at some point I didn't want to be angry no more. Like it was, oh my God, jeez Louise. And then I had another teacher at high school who, she's Greek Orthodox woman. We called her Bird Lady. And because she had this like really protruding nose that was just like a bird's beak. And she recognized that our anger, because I say our anger, because now that I'm an angry child, I'm hanging out with other angry children, right? I gotta find my pack. So we're angry. We're sending teachers away because they can't deal with us. And Mrs. Nixdorf came in and she was like, oh, I know what this is. This is just misplaced energy. Come on, y'all, let's start singing these songs.
That's it.
So we started singing.
Yes.
She started giving us music that looked like us, that felt like us. And so when I say that music really did save my life, and as many artists, as many, channelers whose lives are saved through the arts, it's a real thing, right? Music saved my life because it gave me a constructive way to begin that healing journey, to understand what I was going through, and to be able to simply belt out some of this energy that I had into a different medium, right, which was song and music, and I excelled in that. And so it all started from there.
Thank y'all for giving me some time because I needed it. this
Passing the buck over there.
Yes, but I really appreciate both of your just sharings because I think they've allowed me just to process. So in a way, just to see how healing has been taking place. And I know it's been taking place, and I know it's still taking place, and I think that's what the block was wait, how do I start processing this? And I realized, though, at the core of my essence, so I was born in New Jersey to a Black American family on my father's side from rural North Carolina, and a Haitian American family from La Tibonite, Haiti, who both moved to Princeton, New Jersey. And I grew up with my grandmother and my great-grandmother and my mother in this home, this big home and with a big yard. And I share that because I find when I think of the days that I didn't feel like I needed healing, it was in that yard. It was in that garden. It was my uncle Gil building me a sandbox with materials from the university that he took home, and all of these plants were also from Princeton University because he was the groundskeeper, but he brought those gardens home. And as rural people, they were able to grow some plants, when they got off of work. And I was playing in this garden. And trauma enters, in many forms. And continues to. I will say, like, right now, the thing I'm navigating is divorce, and just what that healing has looked like. And I thank my Kosomba family and my Haitian Studies family really for holding the space for me. And I don't say that just because you're here, but like as I think about the last 3 years, how me as a person who became very heady, found like-minded people, academic people who were also like, you need to put your feet on the ground and remember your spirituality. And in all of this, there was a call. There was, from a little boy, them saying, whoa, something's different in his eyes. I just can't put my finger on it. Whoa, there's a call, as they say in my Pentecostal tradition, there's a call on his life. And okay, but it's different, is what they would always say. And my mom would tell me these things. And my grandmother would tell me how Tunka, my great-grandmother, before she died, saw these things. So throughout all the hurt, there was just this love for spirit, this love for what the traditions I was grown up in of the church, the Black church. There was also these embodied Africanisms that I've come to know throughout it all, on both sides, of food, of dance, and song. And those are the things I'm really wrestling with today. If you know anything in my work, it's going to be about food. People are like, you're always eating. I'm like, yeah, but I am processing how, okay, I'm in this tradition. I feel okay, and yes, I do see the hurt that this tradition has done, and I also see the liberation it has offered my families, and I that liberation has been special to me, even if it's led me. If my spirituality has led me to think, oh, this is the person I should marry, and then, whoa, our liberation, our gods are totally different. We might be worshiping on the same pew, but wow, your anti-blackness and all of this, I got to get out, right? And that's not how I'm experiencing God. And so what's been really interesting to me is that I think at the core of it has been this wrestling of these two identities that have been split, of being Black American and being Haitian American. And the more I heal, the more I commit to spirit, the more I study, the more I am like, are y'all sure y'all weren't related before you, like,
Right.
you know, because we are just retaining so much. And when I'm in class with my Nigerian colleagues and they're like, Lalo, that looks just like Jutli, you know, right? And they're like, they literally say, oh my gosh, you have retained the culture so much. And I think that rings in my head through how I'm healing the ways people have tried to divide my two families, that they both have retained the culture so much. And also that, and so healing that division that people say, you know, oh, these are two things that are so different. But when we go back to embodiment and the foods I eat, the ways I dance, the ways spirit embodies both of these families, and the ways our body language and all of that is the same when spirit does what it does, and that I hold both of these in who I am, has been this healing journey. And to see that truly spirit has kept me, you know, as a Pentecostal, that's what's really important. Like, that's what it is. God,
That's rooted in African indigenous ways.
And so then so if I am able to heal the divisions that I grew up with of, oh, your mom's family said this about us and your dad's family said this about, you know, right? If I'm able to heal those things because I see that, wait, well, I embody both of these things,
Yes.
and they are just the same, then things start to get real queer everywhere. It's, oh, Pentecostalism, Haitian voodoo, what, right? Like, oh, wow, the body language itself is what I can say, like, is exact. The food, okay, now we're going to food. Now we're going to song. Now we're going to dance. And it's been the ways that in my tradition we are waiting for Pentecost coming up, and this is a belief that spirit fell on everybody.
Yes.
And and I've been thinking about that because at our church we'll be celebrating Pride on Pentecost this year, and I've been saying that spirit has fell on everyone. And as I believe that more and more, that just this year as I process it, I'm seeing that healing of spirit going across borders, going across language, Black spirit specifically, right? The spirit of our ancestors, the decisions they made about their spirituality, whether we're feeling like, well, why did they adopt this tradition, or what? How did I just keep coming back to the ways that they acknowledge spirit in those traditions, and that was healing for them, and it's healing for me to say. So my call has been healing. To say yes to spirit has been a form of healing throughout it all. And I guess part of me really wants to be that baby in the garden, you know, and that touched the Pima, you know, every single time and got hot pepper in his eyes. And they took me to that tub, Mumbo, where Papa Ogu showed up. And that's where they would wash me. And I'm like, wow, all of these things were happening in this garden. and I would get my cousins to touch the or we go to the sandbox or the tree house. And I believe that that house is sold and we mourn that house, but that garden can be right here in Little Haiti in Miami or
Yes.
wherever I am and in the spaces that I create.
Yes, yes. Nyya, you're reminding me of a time and space where I can recall being young, and my mother was really big on bathing us, like washing the year before or in preparation for the new school year, wapon mitzin, the cleansing, which, right, and to start anew, right? And so a lot of that has shifted because we have adopted the Western way of existing, right? And again, another dis-ease. And I think and I don't want to put a cloud over that experience because we're all here right now, right? But what's the importance of retaining it, not only for us, but also for the babies, as all three of y'all have spoken of?
Right. That's why I'm at a place in my studies and journeys where I'm asking myself, did we have to name it for it to be retained? Did it have to maintain its name in order for what we embodied to be maintained? Because my grandmother would always say, "Oh, your hair smells. Let me wash your head. Oh, lave tête." And I'm like, "Huh?" And today I was washing my hair. I said, "Oh, it feels so good." But she would put us over the sink and wash our heads, and she would say, "Ma lave tête." And you go to the traditions and you hear, "Oh, lave tête," right? And she did this just randomly, but she would say, "Oh no, it's just because your head smells." And then I realized when I literally last week encountered a racist on Biscayne, the first thing I went to do was wash my hair in the middle of the day. Today I washed my hair and I said, "Wow, I feel so much better." And I was like, what was she doing? Right? And one day, and in my divorce, I moved back home, and one day I said, "Grandma, can you wash my head?" And she was like, "Huh?" And then she did it 3 times. Even though she was scared, she did it 3 and I said, wow, this cleansing of our heads. And so I think that it's important to retain because these things have sustained us, right? And they still sustain us. They still work. And I think retention we can get caught up in semantics of, oh, well, what is your tradition? Oh, what do you call this? And yet we're eating the same thing. We're doing the same thing. Our bodies respond in the same way. And so I think that we have to honor that in retaining, we do get the same results. Now, there's problems with that, but
I'm about to push. I'm going to push the button. We are all part of institutions, right? And in these institutions that we are a part of and that we work for, we move a certain way. I still move. We were having a conversation earlier about institution, and we talking about, no more inclusivity, right? And so being that we are aware of who we are, how we be, how we exist, we come with that. I don't put that to the side because I come into this space. I am spiritual all the time. And then when you do something and when you move a particular way because you're guided by the Spirit, how do you, I know you said don't give a name to it, but how do you explain yourself? How do you move in those institutions being who you are?
I mean, I don't think we need to explain ourselves.
Maybe that's not the word.
Because,
that's not the word.
One of the things, like if we're talking still with the healing thing, the Psychological Association came out a couple years ago and pretty much said that their practice is not for the benefit of Black people. And so, how do you walk that back? You can't. So then, when they tell you they are not for you, then who are you for? So when we talk about epistemology, how do you know what you know? Right. We have to remember that our ancestors, those before me, my grandmother, they had all this knowledge that sustained generations of generations, 500 years. So Western ideology is not the only one. You know, like you have your own way of being and thinking. So, you know, we are not going to let other people define me. You can say whatever you want to say, but I look like this every day. And I know who I am and where I come from, and that is my healing process to be a teacher. I teach them to know. So, you know, again, you know, we've been hearing noise for 500-600 years. You know, we've been hearing noise. And if we dance to that noise, you know, we'll fall down, and we'll continue generations to not know who we are and why we are. I am spirit encased in a vessel. And I happen to come from a Haitian background that is from West African tradition. And I live in a place where Africans came before Europeans in the United States. I'm in a place where there were native people that helped my ancestors survive one of the greatest brutalities that existed in our time frame. That's who I am. I'm spirit first. And I think that is what we need to teach. Beyond any religious beliefs, we have a spiritual identity that connects us to one creator that is of the all. So if I know I am of the all, please remind me if I forget. Sister, please remind me. Brother, please pick up the phone and tell me, girl, you loved and gifted and you are chosen. I'm here right on time. I am right on time. So I think we have to reimagine this Western concept. When I first came here, I was put in special education. Now, who made the mistake? Because they didn't understand how I learned.
Right.
They didn't understand how I learned. But my grandmother, who had no education, said, you will be a professor. So, you know, so we have to disengage with the hypocrisy that we have been fed since our birth.
Ashe. You wanna weigh in, Ireola?
I think that's a perfect segue because for me, that's what I sit on. Erasure is a real thing. You know, people will literally take out their wooden pencil and try to erase you. Erase who you are, erase your memories, okay? Erase that which lives in your DNA. It's a real thing. And I don't say that to scare people. I say that so that people can really wake up and think. Think about who owns your mind and why. Why has your mind been prostituted? Why does your mind belong to someone else? You let someone hold the key each and every single day, and you have to ask permission to enter it. So I don't say that to scare you. I say that because people need to understand how serious this work is. And for me, part of my healing, when I started to really understand the psychology behind this, I got, you know, the opportunity in college to work with Dr. Nyya Toussaint and become a student of Mrimbani and all of the other beautiful scholars that we already have. Because I say to my generation, we have it easier in the sense that all of this research and work has been done for us. We are the generation of implementation.
Yes.
And integration of this information. I'm not saying that research is dead. I'm not saying we shouldn't look into things. No, but I'm saying that we have, you know, Baba Clark that has dedicated his entire life. Sheikh Anta Diop that, you know, dedicated his entire life. You know, Dr. Cress Welsling, in their entire lives to understanding what this phenomena is. What are we all going through? It's laid out. Take the time, study under them. There's YouTube videos if you don't want to dedicate the time to read. But you have to also ask yourself, why is it so hard for you to dedicate that time to understand what it is that you've come to find in this world? And why things are positioned the way that they are. And once you understand what that is, you begin to disconnect. You begin to cut those ethereal cords. Oh, okay. C'est nan dans ça nous te mette yon nan code yo, boum, couper m'bap danser dans ça encore. Ah, c'est nan manger ça ou te mette code là, m'couper m'bap manger ça encore. C'est nan habit ça, ou bien c'est nan pratique ça, ou bien c'est nan tintin ça, couper code yo. cut the ethereal cords that are keeping you from owning your own mind and your own body. Because we have reached a point where we can't say they anymore. It's because of them anymore. Because we have the resources, we have the tools. That is our power now. That is our leverage now. So we have to understand what to now do with this leverage. And so in the workspace, in the home space, in whatever space, I am true and true. And people are highly intimidated by that. Because sometimes they see us and they really do think this is a costume. They think that this is a gimmick. This ain't no gimmick. My life ain't no gimmick. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can't put this stuff on and off because there are consequences with the pacts that I've made if I try to take this off. Daya, this cloak is protecting me. It's protection for me. And so it does, it's a disservice for me to want to take that off. So understanding the tools that are at your disposal and being very serious about who you are going to decide to have the key to you.
I love that. I love the fact that you talked about the clothes, how we show up, even now, just so eclectic.
And we didn't plan this.
And we did not plan this. And, you know, one of the things that, one of the things that my staff always, since being here, I've been 3 months in this position so far. Yes, hold me, y'all, hold me.
You're chosen.
One of the things that my staff point out to me immediately, and again, I am not aware of this, is the way that I show up, even in my dress. Right. I am very fluid and I love it. Sometimes I'm going to have a dress, sometimes I'm going to have a pantsuit, right? And sometimes I'm going to wear the chics and, you know, just all of the stuff, right? It is the one thing for me that coming back here, that I sat with, like, how will I show up? Because in Philadelphia is queer in all its, up north is queer in all its, on all its senses. And I think, I want to talk about queerness. And I think some people think queerness is just when it comes to sexuality, and that's not what it is. Queerness is art, it's music, it's fluidity, right? It's being set apart. It's showing up. Queerness is nonconformity.
Hello.
Queerness is nonconformity. That's how I understand it for myself. And by no means coming back here did I come here to conform, because I got the teaching. I got the lesson. I got the calling, right? And if I take off the cloth, right, then who am I? I am not she who has come here to take on this role as a director here at the Little Haiti Culture Complex. And I say that openly because there will be questions, and I want to put that out in the beginning. How have you navigated? Teach me. I'm asking y'all to teach me, especially in Miami, especially down the other South, right? How have you navigated this space in your own unique queerness? Nous vin parler, oui? Vin parler.
Wait, you didn't tell them that we had no idea what we're talking about.
Oh, yeah. So one of the things about Communal Conversation,
first time.
Get comfortable.
And they deep.
You know, one of the things that I think is that you have to show up with your authenticity. Yes. And people will not question you when you are authentic. If you are playing the role of you'll never be, you'll get caught up. You'll forget who you are. So, you know, I came here from Massachusetts, you know, and I didn't know South Florida was the South. I'd never been to the Florida, and then the South hit me, block, block, block. They were like, what? I don't know no Haitian that went to Harvard. What? You sure that degree is for real? I mean, is that diploma? I was like, oh. And then so, you know, so the thing is that, and then, you know, I'm like, and I was wearing suits. I was an administrator in a school before I came here. So it was the North suits and everything like that. And then when they started hitting me with that, I said, you know what? I got a cloak. I started wearing African clothes. Because I said, I need to be conscious of who I am and where I came from. And I came from a group of people that gained their independence from their colonizer. That is who I am.
Say that. Say that.
Okay? I'm a Boakai monk. We said, you know what? Liberation or death. The only nation, and my grandmother would tell us that every morning before the plaque was at the door. When we left the house, there was a brown cross with a brown Jesus and this plaque. She said, leave this house and remember who you are and come back the same way. So I do think in the aspect of talking about queerness, like we hold all energies.
Yes.
We hold both energies. We come from a mother and a father. And we understand that we weren't slaves. We're kidnapped Africans. Yeah. Child of a God that created, what the Haitian would say, avec deux mains, with two hands.
Yes.
So I show up with my authentic self. You can say whatever you want, but I know who I am. I don't need you to define me. And so, my first years in Florida was very difficult. Because it was a process of like stereotyping and misunderstanding, bottom line jealousy, because I'm all that. It was an act of like, who are you to stand in your authentic self? I am my mother's child. I am my grandmother's child. I am my great-grandmother's daughter. Yeah. That is who I am. Sometimes I forget, don't get it wrong. And like I have to reel it back in and remember and get real quiet. And I think in this time right now, we got to get real quiet and really use our energy in ways that serves us, our community, and our family. We should not wait for anyone. So when you talk about this, I think it's essential for us to remember who you are or how you are. You have to be authentic and love you more than anybody else so that you move with your God. You move with your spirit. You glide. When you enter the room, they got to see you. Okay? Not because you want to be seen, because that's your cloak. See me and walk away. Don't mess with me. Know who you are. We are children of our God.
Amen. Listen. Amen. We.
Hi, boo-boo.
See, if I could get, I guess, a little
Please.
political science up in here for that part of my life, I think showing up queer is as we said, is non-conforming, right? And that's a political term also, right? To not conform. And it is a spiritual term, right? Especially for those using Christian texts, that we will not be conformed to this world, interestingly enough. And so we see these queerness there. But what really helps me, because this is my Florida 2.0, so I came here for undergrad, left, right, went back home to the Northeast, and then came back. What really helps me is the politics behind queerness. And what I mean by that is, I came to a point in my studies where they were talking about how in order to vote in this country, you had to be a man, you had to be straight, you had to be married to a woman, and you had to own land, and you had to own enslaved people, right? And this is the basis of that. And I remember just going down a line, and I said, wait a minute, we had to be white, right? And so to see that just my existence as a person who is not a white, cis, hetero man made me queer. And I think a lot of times we have to realize how our societies construct what we must conform to. And then we could either have the choice of trying to conform and be that thing, even though we will never be that thing, or we can realize, wow, everything that I embody resist. And so I'm like, of course black men are queer. And people are like, how dare you say this? I'm like, we have no other choice, because we will never be this white man in a suit, whatever this image is, we will never fit. And so there's a queerness within us no matter what we do. And I'm just speaking about black men now to speak from my experience. But like, of course we will queer a space when we walk in. And then the ways that we embody what it means to be black when we're pushing back against whatever the standard is, become queer. So, oh, you guys got your pants down, what's going on? Oh, and we hear all the queer tropes behind this. But at the end of the day, yes, it is queer in the ways that it queers the standard. It queers what we actually all should be questioning, right? And we embody that. And so how do I show up? It's that understanding of, I don't want to be pursuing this normative way of being, whatever that may be, right? And as you said, we're not just talking sexually. We're not just talking about gender. There's so much that we queer as people just because of the ways that we are the antithesis of this society. And so when I show up, if I could get real Pentecostal,
Go ahead.
just kind of what you were saying, I say, okay, y'all demons better shut up and get out, right? Like, because that's, oh, you're intimidated? Oh, that's spiritual. Like, oh, you're intimidated by the very things that I'm now willing to stand in, that because I won't conform. And now you're calling me all sorts of names on my job, and you're upset with me about this, or everything's about race for you, everything's about gender. This has become a spiritual battle. And so what do? I go in with prayer. I go in, oh, okay, well, I am standing in this truth, right? And that is a spiritual truth, that I can stand in this even though the world tells me, hey, it'll be much easier if you just take this, oh, just jump over the ledge. God will catch, whatever the temptation is, right? Oh, just eat the bread. Like, just do it. Conform, is that easy way. And it's really not. It's what kills us out. And then.
Slow kill. So let's talk about queer in space as black people. I'm a fashion head, and I love. Y'all saw the Met Gala though?
I didn't get to see
Come on,
that. I
let's
need
talk
paper.
about the Met Gala. I mean, just the outfits in itself. If you haven't seen the outfits, please see the outfits in the Met Gala. I think it's probably my favorite line of clothing, how we are utilizing the African attire, the duality of how we show up. I think it was a beautiful display, especially from us, black people. So we are in this time and space where the community, hence communal conversation, gets to engage with us in questioning, dialogue, conversation. So if anybody in the space want to speak or share of anything, it's welcome at this time. And we'll share mics. I'll put one on this side as well. Oh, thank you.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir.
Mwenrele Keegan. I'm someone who, I guess, focuses my energy on, I guess you could say, setting up communities, creating trusts, figuring out how this whole credit system works, as well as using international bills of exchange and other payment methods versus Federal Reserve notes, especially since the economy is somewhat fictional, but also because people are using these currencies, we're all bound to its value. So if anyone is interested in that, having a further conversation about that, I'm most definitely open to that, because when you look around, especially, well, in Little Haiti, but anywhere in Miami, it does not look good at all. People have mortgages, people have car contracts, getting those all discharged, and just being able to improve people's quality of life. And being that all this is international, it of course works for other countries as well, including IET and the rest of the world, because this whole finance system is based on that. But I just wanted to include that before I guess, go into, I guess, some comments or questions. So, you know, I don't know the lady's name right here. with the red-
Ireola.
You mentioned something very, very interesting. You said, you mentioned like I guess the names of various different people in regards to IET, and you said Europeans, and they don't get treated as similarly as others. And in my mind, I'm like, that's very deep, because you're kind of talking about the Latin diaspora and how that relates to the empire of IT, and how there was both sides of the empire across the Atlantic. And that history there is very, I guess you could say, deep and interesting, and how it interacts with World War I and World War II, and where we are now in regards to this whole situation that we're living in, and just our quality of life in general, and our willingness to work together, you know what I mean? Just as people in this situation, under the quote-unquote New World Order politics and AI and all the things that they're trying to push upon us. I just wanted to know, like, if you I guess have any, you can comment more on that, anything you know about that.
Well, I definitely can't speak to all the different topics that you mentioned, but if your question is about, you know, I mentioned earlier about how the European immigrants at the school that I was at weren't treated the same as those of us who were coming from South America and the Caribbean. I mean, it's very simple. I think that sometimes we try to make ourselves believe that this is a non-reality, but the reality is that this melanin that you have and this skin that you bear is a symbol of a specific identity, right? So you can dress it up in a suit, you can curl or perm the hair, you know, you can do whatever alterations that you want to do to this fabric, but the reality is the symbol itself, the physical symbol of your hair texture and of your skin tone and of your features, you know, carries a symbolism. And so we have to really focus it above all of these nationalities and, you know, these, you know, false barriers across the planet. We have to understand that these are things that are encased in mindsets, that it's about the mindset. So I could be looking at somebody that looks like me, but they may be carrying the contents of a Eurasian. And so that means they have nothing to do with me, and I have nothing to do with them. And then equally, you can have somebody that, you know, has the phenotype, you know, of a Celt, right? But has maybe, you know, felt like they came here as an assignment to be a comrade. And, you know, they're willing to like reject their whole family and their whole thing and pack up their bags and follow the movement. So that's my brethren. You know, so we've never been about the skin tone stuff. If you see some Igbo women, they are as light-skinned as this sister here, right? So the skin tone thing, the Raza thing, the race thing is a created thing.
It's an American concept.
Right?
It's an American concept. It's a Western thing.
Right. I mean, rooted in Europe, though. Rooted in Italy, right? I mean, right. So we have to go beyond those things and stop seeing it as these race wars, and really, again, disconnect yourself from a language that is already very deficient. in expressing this human experience. So remove yourselves from those coding, the falsified codes that you've been given to create an illusion for you as a reality. And I think that once we get past those things and we can really see beyond what people are wearing and the costumes that people do wear, we can really get to some of the solutions that we need to move forward as a people.
Honnête.
Respect.
M'attendez. Honnête.
Respect.
Merci. First of all, thank you for this conversation. And during the conversation, you mentioned many times Black spirit. And I'm glad you just did what you did. Basically, why we call our spirits Black spirits? First of all, they decided to call us Black people. We are Africans. Why we keep saying Black spirit?
Instead of, because it was me that
Yeah.
I think I mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely.
Instead of,
African spirit.
Or we need to figure out how to call our spirits, but when we name our spirits Black spirits, what that means.
just to clarify, when I said that, I was saying these spirits that belong to us as Black folks, but I'm not sure if that's getting to the gist of your question.
No, basically, no. This is not the first time I noticed that. It's not just about you, not today.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, we repeat what they want us to repeat. For example, Black people. They decide to say, we are Black, and we say, oh, Black people. We are more than that. We're not Black people. We are Africans, or somehow. But now, if they can say that based on our skin color, we understand that, but our spirit, they don't have that skin color. Why? Usually, we say Black spirit, Black magic, Black psychology. Why we put the Black to that?
Well, I'm going to let Dr. Hall answer, but one of the things is I think that we all commune and say that spirit, spirit has no color. Even in the Vodou tradition, originally, there was no images or anything. It was just spirit, a cosmic energy that we're able to be a conduit of. Black psychology had to exist because there was a traditional psychology, like I said, that centered not the healing of Black people. So that in 1968, they had to do that to counter a healing that was for our detriment and created their own. And similar to, what Sister Ireola was saying, we created our own psychological archetypes, particularly the Haitian tradition. The Lois are also psychological archetypes. So when she said that she had a danto as a child, that's a particular energy, a particular female warrior energy that came, and we identify it in such a way. And like for me, with my program, all the Lois are psychological archetypes. And I have learned ways to heal that in terms of my historic tradition. So yes, we are spirit first, but Creator put us in a specific path of where we were born in our traditions, and our search is to go back to spirit, because all of us will go back to Creator, and we will be that spirit. But in some cases, when it's positioned, we have to use the identity that we are, but not belittling that we all come from one spirit. Doctor.
Yeah. So, what she said about Black psychology in its formation took two routes. One was, first, we had to define ourselves for ourselves because they weren't defining us. So initially, we came out and said the Association of Black Psychology.
To please them, because
No, to unify Blacks in the diaspora. The second, once we started to define ourselves for ourselves, we took if you know anything about where we are now, we consider ourselves Pan-African. So we do use that language, Pan-Africanism, in the association. And if you talk to Dr. Linda James Myers, who is one of my mentors in the association, and Baba Wade Nobles, like she talks about, those are the two of the elders that are Pan-African psychologists. They will say, man is essentially spirit first. That's the language we use as Pan-Africans. Yes. So we had to initially say we're going to remove ourselves from them. And the word black really could be substituted. If we want to use the word African, that's not even accurate, because the continent was named African by Europeans. We called it a Kabbalan. But really, that's not accurate, because if we talk to the Dogon people, we're cosmic beings. We don't come from here. That's why we have humankind and human beings. We're humankind. We're kind of human. We're cosmic. So what we have to understand is the work that Dr. Francis Cress Welsing and Marimba Ani and John Henry Clark and all of them did. Where we are now is now we got to go back to those cosmic beings and understand, because the Dogon people gave us the calendars. The Dogon people told us about Series A and Series B before they even knew what a telescope was. It wasn't invented. So we have to. We still got other work to do. They got us there, but now we got to start talking about, no, I'm not only spirit, I'm a cosmic being.
I just want to
And
say,
that's Afrofuturism.
I just want to say that if you want to discover why we call ourselves these names, there's a wonderful book called How Europe Underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney. And it talks about DNA and how a white person might have more DNA than your fellow black person, right? It talks about how black is anything that was anti-white. White was oppression. So if you are against oppression, you are black. That's why it exists. It grew into so many different definitions, as we do as humankind, human beings actually, human beings. We use the term and we change it and we change it and we change it. But it began as anti-white. We are not about oppression. And again, I don't want to go too deep into it. There's a book by Walter Rodney and he breaks it down, right? How we use these terms, how they changed. But like she was saying, it was about identifying ourselves so we can unify, because we came here 400 years later and it erased us. So we had to find ways to identify us because they are made by us. They aren't true, but they're true to us. And we needed them to unite. We needed the terms. And we need to grow.
I just think we have to be careful not like to get caught up in words, right? Like, and then, because this is how we start beating each other up, because we're like, well, why are we calling it this? Why? And looking for something, right? When we know, when I say, words are used because words mean things, right? So when I say black, you know what I'm talking about. And that's Creole Parler, right? If I say it, you understand it. And so that of course, much of the words that we've used today, queer was oppressive, black was oppressive, right? Today at the canal that we all love, everyone is saying, I'm a peasant. Whoa, paysan, no. The people are saying, moi c'est un paysan. Lately I've been saying, moi c'est un bossal, oui. What? Moi c'est mundeo, oui. Because I am. Like, who would want to say that? Oh my gosh, why would you say that? But you know exactly what I mean when I say that. You know exactly what these words mean. And that's why we have these words. And what happens with social movement? We take a word. We reclaim it. We say, yeah, you've been calling me a nigga all my life. And guess what? Now I'm calling, right? And then we know what to say. Hey, you can't use this word. Hey, wow, we know when it's charged and when it's not. We know someone's intention behind the words that they use, but that's history, right? The linguistic turn is that words will constantly change in meaning, but the thing is, you know what I'm saying. And so that's where I think we have to stop, because we can get into this back and forth, but all we're saying is, you know what, I'm trying to explain something to you, so I got to use this word, right?
I understood you. Mm-hmm. The thing is, when I say, it's mostly when you say black. Oh, sorry about that. When you said the black spirit.
Right.
She said that she was able to say Danto. She could have said black spirit, but she was able to say the name of the spirit. when you say black spirit, I understand. Yeah,
You're asking me what I meant, right, by black spirit.
Exactly. That's why I asked specifically, what did you mean?
Yes, I said, I think you missed it when I first answered. I said the spirits that belong to black folks, right? So that may be the pantheon, right, of Orisha, of Lua. It also may be the Holy Spirit. I'm not talking about the race of a spirit. We also know that within these traditions, the spirits may have an image that is different races. But as Mambo said, there's this belief that spirit does not need this color, does not need, it's an energy.
Yeah,
Think about a blind person. It ain't got nothing to do with color. It's a vibration. We talk about vibrations, right?
Yeah.
Blind person can't see no color. So if all of us were blind, we wouldn't even be having this type of conversation. Right. We'll be in here talking about, what's your vibration? I feel your energy, right? That's really what it's about. Spirit is energy. It's vibration. It's frequency. It's beyond the electromagnetic spectrum. That's what we're really talking about.
And I believe that the human beings need a terminology to identify. The humankind can completely understand and not question, right? And so I'm sorry, we're going to have to wrap up this conversation. Okay.
A black woman. Another question?
We have.
Go ahead.
No. I'll take your question. This is the last question. I have to wrap up.
Okay. My question is, what do you tell the young folk? I work in children's music, and I want to know exactly what do we tell the young folk, because through my journey being Haitian, practicing African spirituality, hesitant, scared, going back and forth. When I started Buddhism, I would meditate for hours, and then I had a lot more Vodou dreams, dressed in the fabric, doing the ceremony that I never had before. And I was told that you are just getting back to yourself, even though Buddhism is not Vodou. It's still going to get you back to your spirit, right? So I'm always going to get back to that spirit, right? But I want to know, how do I tell someone, a young person who is Christian, or any religion, who wants to figure out, how do I love myself in this religion? Because it doesn't save you. I have devout Christian family who are schizophrenic. They are not being saved. They are not well. I have people who study Vodou, but they are not well. So I feel like there's something that's happening. I feel like the introspection, that meditation, that silence is not happening. So how do you talk to a young person? Explain to them really dumb, not really dumb, really simple. How do you get to that spirit?
I mean, I think you just have to tell them the truth and share your story. I mean, then I have a plug. You know, Dr. Hall and I wrote a book in terms of how to educate children in spirit. And we are actually going to have the young people who are now in their 20s and early 30s that spent 7 years in our program. We're going to be having an event where they're going to be speaking. They are going to be speaking on May 17th at 11 o'clock at the African American Museum Library. So there is a process. And, you know, and what the black psychology folks say is that we have spirit damage. They don't say we have racism, we have, you know, all of these things. It says we have spirit damage. That is our clinical problem. And we have to learn how to disconnect and reconnect to a source that is ours. So we did this. And for the first years, like decolonizing the imagination. The very imagination of children have been colonized. You know, my dark skin, and I couldn't have a black doll. I'm looking at pictures, I had all little blonde dolls. So your very imagination, you can't even process the idea of what you're saying. You know, so we have to really teach love. And like, you have to consciously be in a love story with the children around you. We have to claim our children. We have to claim. You don't have to have a kid, but you need to claim one or two. You know, we have to invest in our community because we are showing our children that they are less than and not worthy. So we need to step up. You and I, we're going to be doing a assembly here for young people on the 24th. So like right now, we're where we are. But we have a generation of children that don't know Haiti, that don't know Africa,
Right.
that don't know Little Haiti, right?
That part.
That don't know United States.
Right.
And how are we, as a collective group of human spirits, gonna cultivate and claim our children for liberation?
And I would just happy, and I want you to have the last word. Please, you got something to say, right? Yeah. Okay. I want you to add. I just want to encourage us to really start checking adults, and because our children are vulnerable, and part of the trauma that I had to navigate and heal was from adults, right? And so getting back to, let's remind ourselves, I know we were in a pandemic, but hey, what does it look like for adults? How are we ensuring the adults that are doing the training and the child rearing are safe, right, in our spiritual spaces? Are they literally knowing what they're doing, or is this some sort of pride thing that they're involved in to be a teacher, to be in power over younger people, right? I just really want to encourage us that very basic thing, because as we said, who brought the dolls, right? Or whatever, and I don't want to go, too far, but like, what do we do for our children? We find them good adults, right? We find them people who are committed to this, people who are checked and doing the internal work, doing that child work and loving on their inner child before they pour into a child.
Yeah.
Part of the reality is that, adults who weren't able to get the proper information and orientation for rearing children themselves could use a parent. And so I know that adults, you are doing the best that you can with what you've been given, but the reality is you can do a little bit more. And the little bit more doesn't have to be these grandiose things. You don't have to have the money to, send your child to the so-called best school and so-called, best program, but something as simple as taking their electronics away and spending some time with them.
Presence.
Because children want you,
Presence.
right? They want you beyond anything else. I've yet to see a child that doesn't want to be with their parent. But the fact that we don't want to take the time because we find it to be inconvenient, because the overculture that we live in is about convenience, not efficiency. I think that we get the two confused. There's efficiency and then there's convenience. And it's convenience that is rotting the brains of our children, beginning with those misused electronics. I'm not saying that technology in this form, in this electronic form, doesn't have its place in our community, because again, we want to be able to be efficient so that way we can evolve in better ways. But parents have to understand the difference about efficiency and conveniency. And to the children, I say, we have to allow them to question and encourage them to question and ask them questions. Because the first thing is, for me, self-exploration. Every educator that has had a great impact on my life, or every adult that has had a great impact on my life, either prompted some self-exploration. Kimonuyi. What do you like to eat? Why do you like to eat those things? Just ask mundane questions. Why? Be the why child, And I know it gets annoying sometimes, like, because even in the why, sometimes it could be a rhetorical why. Right? If you're feeling like you don't want to engage the whys all the time. But self-exploration, we have to introduce that back into our children. Because the moment we took arts out of these institutions of learning, we took that self-exploratory mechanism away. And we began to do a rote education that is only teaching us, again, obviously to get a job, but also to really be an assembly line, person. So self-exploration. And then the secondary one is self-mastery. What are the small things that you can do to become the better version of you every single day? All right, you want to learn how to get as many leaves into this glass jar, see how many you can get without, little things. I think we sometimes overthink these things, and then we end up not doing anything at all because we're overthinking it. People back out there pour un petit monde, voyez le dehors quitter la jouer. Let them get dirty, right? Have some clothes that are specific to the outside world so that you don't complain about, you got your this dirty, you got your good shoes dirty. Give them some outdoor shoes so that you don't have to be inconvenienced yet again, right? Because this convenience thing is truly one of the reasons why parents do not let their children explore the world. It's an inconvenience.
Yes.
Right.
But you would rather your child's mind rot and then become a zombie that is subservient to a system that hates it?
Right.
What do you prefer?
Right. Help us.
The 30 minutes a day that you can accord your child, that makes a huge difference. Right? Off the tablet and with you. And I know that trust is something that is also big in this. We don't trust the community members anymore because community members have taken, leeway to defile the very seeds of our future.
Help us.
And we need to start calling them out. I made a promise to my family members. I said, tout moun kap fait mauvais zak, mauvais tinte dans famille sa, I will call you all out. You will be ousted. Because it's because we protect them. The adults protect them. We protect them because we think we are saving the family name. And
talk about
saving what family name? You're protecting disease so that it can fester within a home space that is then impacting your child. That stifles their ability to explore themselves because they're stuck in shame and guilt. And then you're stifling their ability to self-master because they are stuck in shame and guilt. They can't, that first chakra is just locked. Serré. So the energy can't flow. So stop holding shame over your children. Stop having your children do things because of shame and guilt. And allow them to explore themselves. Allow them to explore you, the adult. Ask them questions. Why you got your hair like that, auntie? Auntie, why you wear this? I love to just have my niece come to the house and just watch me put on makeup and watch me put on clothes. So she can ask questions. Why do I do it like that? Well, and then we get into the know-how. Right? And that's our sacred auntie niece time. And I do different stuff with my nephews because I understand that the masculine and feminine energies need to be fed differently. But it's the simple things. You're afraid of your child being bored. So what? We all grew on boredom. Boredom is what sparks innovation and creativity.
Yes,
you're not going to be an innovator. You're not going to think critically until you done sat in that chair for so damn long that you're trying to figure out, how can I make my fun come to me? And then you let your imagination run. But you don't even develop your imagination because you're stuck like this. So I am the auntie that puts my hand over the child's electronics every time I see them. Yo gume avem and bakie. They fight me all the time, and I don't care. I get in fights with little children. Yep, because I'm trying to take their tablet away. Because I want to engage with them. I'm trying to show them there's a human in front of you that wants to talk to you, that wants to know who you are. Get to know a child, y'all.
Yes. All right, we got to wrap it up. I'm going to add one more as just to close because it's important. My heart is, I was a youth minister for years. So I have a seminary degree. And so I've been through the fire, been through the rain. But I do have nibblings, niece and nephews who I am very intentional about. I am the auntie that is going to bring them to the beach because I know it's cleansing.
Yes.
I am the auntie that's going to play with them in the rain because I love water, because I know the clearing that is needed from the top of your head to the sole of your feet. And if there's one more thing I can add with what do you do with the next generation, don't forget to play. I think as adults, we forget our own childlike nature. We do this adulting thing because society forces into it. Our institution forces into it. I remember in 2022 where I was very intentional, where I took a year off just to play. And I called it a playcation. I took a playcation for a year, and it's still the most healing journey that I ever took in my life, because I had to remember this little girl that loved to play, that loved to be outside in the sun, that loved to be near water. And so when our children can see us in play as adults, imagine who they can be when they become our age, and remember that I'm gonna say it this way: your oldest self is your younger self. The person that is the oldest in your being is that little boy, that little girl, that little being. They have journeyed with you longer than who you are right now in this moment. Give them time to play. Thank you for this communal conversation. Wow, thank you all for being with us this evening. And please, after this conversation, continue the conversation with the guests. We will be around. Please, let's take some pictures. Let's take them up, flood it. It is streaming. Please share with others. Thank you so much.